This Christmas, I made Pokémon cardigans for some of my nieces, based on the free Eevee-lution pattern provided by Sew Desu Ne, also known as Choli Knight. Step 1, of course, was to print out and cut out the pattern, assisted by my supervisor, Pepper. My oldest niece wanted a blue Eevee cardigan. Now, to clarify, this was not a Glaceon, and this was not a Vaporeon. It was Eevee, the starter, but blue, and with a green neck ruff. There isn't a neck ruff included in the cardigan pattern, so I drafted my own. I started with making the ears and attaching them to the hood. Then I made the actual cardigan part, and I was going to do the neck ruff as an applique, but then I changed my mind and decided to do it as a capelet, partly because I wasn't sure if I would line it up correctly for an applique to stretch properly, but also because I thought that that would look fluffier. I sewed the layers of the neck ruff together using a technique called Tufted quilting, where instead of stitching in lines, you just put knots in a grid pattern, or in this case, kind of a fan pattern, trying to follow the curve of the collar. I hemmed the cuffs and the edges using a herringbone stitch, which is also called a cross stitch, but is not to be confused with an embroidery cross stitch. Anyway, the reason I did a herringbone stitch was to preserve the stretch of the fleece. The next cardigan I made was with the Vaporeon pattern in purple. I made a couple of modifications to this one. I gave it spikes down the back, and again I included the frill around the neck. Cut 4 of the side frills and 2 of the top frill, plus 1 of the neck frill, but through 4 layers because I was cutting it on the fold. The fins were a little bit baggy once they were all put together, so I included lines where the struts of the fins would be to hold them together. And around the collar frill, I did the lines for fin struts, but also included some tufted quilting. This was actually where I got the idea to incorporate the tufted quilting into the Pokémon cardigans. Because I was only attaching 2 layers of fleece together without any filler in between, any kind of quilt batting, it's almost invisible on the finished product. The last one was a dark pink Pikachu with bright pink accents. In the camera it comes out kind of purple, but I promise it's pink. I used the Pokémon hoodie hack, also a Sew Desu Ne pattern, in order to make sure that I had the ears in the correct orientation, but I didn't actually print that one out. I just used it visually as a guide while cutting the ears based on the Eevee ear lining. And I used the Esperon forehead jewel for Pikachu's cheek spots. I realized while I was taking progress pictures of the Pikachu cardigan that I had forgotten to take a picture of the completed Vaporeon cardigan before I wrapped it up, but I didn't feel like unwrapping and rewrapping it, so you'll just have to take my word for it that that one turned out well. I also drafted and appliqued on the 2 stripes on Pikachu's back. You guys will see the Vaporeon collar attached to a garment at some point because I really liked the pattern piece, so I saved it to attach to a shirt someday.